Shavua Tov, everybody. Welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you as always by Lay of the Land and hosted by me, Rolene Marks. And we bring you those top stories making headlines in Israel and the region every Monday to Thursday. So let's take a look at those big stories. And last week we spoke about the horrific anti-Semitic comments by the United Nations Human Rights Council Commission of Inquiry on Israel and the Palestinians investigator Milun Kotari. So just to revisit his comments, he was speaking to Mondevice on a podcast. Mondevice are already a vehemently anti-Israel publication, and in his comments he said that he doesn't see why Israel should be a member state of the United Nations, but also said that Jews and NGOs control social media. Now that goes back to anti-Semitic tropes accusing Jews of controlling the media, controlling governments and banks, etc., etc., and has resulted in widespread condemnation. Now, yesterday, our Prime Minister Yair Lapid wrote a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling for the removal of all three of the member panels for the Commission of Inquiry and for the Commission of Inquiry to actually be dissolved. He cited the previous history of all three panelists with anti-Israel activity as well as anti-Semitic comments. The Prime Minister went on to say that anti-Semitism cannot be fought with words alone. It has to also be backed up by action. Now, what is interesting has been the response by Milun Kotari's co-panelists. In a letter released on Friday, Navi Pillay, who has come under extreme scrutiny for her anti-Israel activity, including signing petitions supporting the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, as well as endorsing Palestinian terrorist Layla Khaled, she who made airplane hijacking rather famous. She tried to justify the comments made by Kotari by saying that they were taken out of context. She also quoted the third panelist, Christopher Sadotti, who had said that Jews fling around the accusation of anti-Semitism like rice at a wedding. Well, of course, this is offensive not just to Jews, but to many Western countries. And the United Kingdom, the United States and Canada have been joined by France, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, Czech Republic, Australia in condemning the vile anti-Semitism, as well as Austria. Countries like Germany and Austria are very vocal against the practice of anti-Semitism, having known and experienced it in their recent history. The President of the United Nations Human Rights Council also released a statement saying that these comments were perhaps anti-Semitic. Well, they weren't perhaps anti-Semitic, they were fully anti-Semitic. And former Special Rapporteur Ahmed Shahid, a great friend of the Jewish people, has sent out a tweet yesterday where he said that the United Nations is corrupt throughout the institution with anti-Semitism and it needs to be rooted out. Thank you, Special Rapporteur, even though you're a former Special Rapporteur, Ahmed Shahid, for your support of the Jewish people. In other news, a Hamas official announced that Israel had destroyed the facility where the captive remains of an IDF soldier were being kept. This was reported during last year's flare-up between Israel and terror entities in the Gaza Strip during Operation Guardians of the Wall. Now, those claims could not be immediately verified, and an Israeli official said that this was a lie, and that the reason Hamas are making statements like this is that they're trying to shore up support as they ramp up negotiation efforts. Hamas are presently holding the remains of two fallen soldiers, Oron Shaul and Hadar Golden, as well as two Israeli civilians, Hisham al-Sayed and Avera Mengistu. Hisham al-Sayed was captured on film, sent out by Hamas just a couple of weeks ago, and his medical condition is rapidly deteriorating. Now, Hamas want dozens of Palestinian terrorists, prisoners with blood on their hands, released in a possible exchange. Now, I don't know about you, but just the mention of Ben&Jerry's, the holding company or the company in Vermont in the United States, is enough to give me lactose intolerant. And we've been covering the story of Ben&Jerry's and how they made that outrageous statement last year that they would be prohibiting their ice cream from being sold in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Well, they are currently engaged in a legal dispute with their holding company, Unilever. However, the talks or the negotiations between Unilever and Ben&Jerry's have broken down. They have reached an impasse. Ben&Jerry say that Unilever had no right to enter into distribution agreement with the Israeli manufacturer and distributor Avi Zinger, while Unilever are saying that the decision made by Ben&Jerry's was operational and they had every right to enter the fray. Last week, Unilever CEO Alan Juppe said that Ben&Jerry should actually stay out of geopolitics and maybe focus on social justice issues that are domestic. It is expected that the two parties will go back to court. And our final story, we always try and end with something a little bit more positive. But last night in an interview with Channel 12, Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska spoke about Israeli resilience. She said that Israel's past experiences with war and conflict really inspire the Ukrainian people. She said the people of Ukraine take great inspiration and strength by Israelis and their resilience. She also noted that Ukraine's healthcare system is overwhelmed and said that the country is really grateful for all the help that they get. Israel has dispatched more humanitarian aid, including an increase of 2.5 million shekels to go to 9 civil society organizations working with civilians. Over the weekend, Israel sent tens of thousands of humanitarian prepackaged meals. And yesterday, a delegation of about 15 psychiatrists and social workers from Ukraine landed in Israel to learn and to work with Israeli psychotrauma experts how to deal with the civilian population in a time of war. So that brings us to the end of today's top stories. Don't forget to check out our website on www.layoftheland.online. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, don't forget to hit us up via our website. Our Facebook page is @LottlSite. Please give us a like, give us a follow, invite your friends to share our content. You guys know what to do. We are also on YouTube, and if you are viewing us there, please click on that red subscribe button. Let's get the news from Israel out to as many people as possible. And of course, we're on Twitter. Our handle is @LayOfTheLand5. And with that, I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief. Don't forget to join me again tomorrow where we take a look at those top stories right here in Israel and our region.